The wolves came just as the clock struck midnight. Their howls were a desolate sound, echoing through the valley like the sorrowful cry of a forgotten god. Inside the tavern, the very walls seemed to tremble with the noise. Villagers, their faces etched with a fear passed down through generations, scrambled for cover under tables, their lips moving in silent, hopeless prayers. But Vanter was not a man for prayers. With a roar, he kicked the front door open, his heavy axe already in hand, his beard soaked with the midnight rain. "Come on then, you mangy ghosts," he growled into the night. The courtyard was a sea of swirling white fog, a phantom world. Through the mist, the pack emerged, a silent, deadly tide of fur and fang. They moved with an unsettling coordination, their eyes glowing like red embers buried in ash. From the balcony above, Roken launched himself into the fray, landing as lightly as a cat on a table below. His twin daggers flashed in the dim light. "I'll take the left flank," he yelled, his voice swallowed by a sudden clap of thunder. Then, a new light pierced the gloom. Catalina raised her holy symbol, and a sphere of pure, golden radiance burst from it, cutting through the fog like the first light of dawn, breaking through a storm. "By the morning Lord's grace, back!" she commanded. The wolves recoiled, snarling, momentarily blinded by the divine light. But the fog itself seemed to take on a life of its own. It thickened, swirled, and from its depths, a new figure emerged. It had the shape of a man, but it was horribly twisted, a grotesque parody of humanity. Its grin was that of a beast, and its claws were long and sharp as knives. Its eyes burned with a cold, cunning hatred. "Werewolf!" Taztic spat, his voice tight as he drew his longbow. An arrow flew, a blur in the chaotic night, and struck the creature squarely in the throat. But instead of falling, the werewolf simply laughed, a horrifying, wet gurgle. "Barovia welcomes you," it hissed, blood bubbling from the wound. That's when all hell broke loose. Vanter charged, meeting the monster head-on. The courtyard became a whirlwind of chaos, the clang of steel on fang, the searing hiss of holy light against shadow. Catalina's divine power seared the wolves, sending them howling into oblivion. Taztic's arrows pinned beast after beast to the muddy ground. Roken was a phantom, his daggers finding their marks in wolf throats before he vanished back into the shadows. Vanter, in a final bellowing rage, crushed the werewolf's spine under his boot and split its skull in two. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Roken wiped a bloody dagger on his sleeve. "Well," he said, breathing hard, "if that's just the welcoming party, we're in for a long damn visit." Catalina knelt among the fallen, her face a mask of sorrow. "They were men once," she murmured, touching a still warm corpse. "Condemned souls." Taztic said nothing. His gaze was fixed on the tree line. Something was moving there, not a beast, but a figure cloaked in deep purple. It was a woman, and her eyes seemed to shine with an ancient luminous light. She raised a single hand and beckoned them forward. They followed her through the lingering fog, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. Soon they came upon a strange camp. Colorful wagons were arranged in a circle, bathed in the glow of fires that burned with an eerie, unnatural light. Soft, haunting music drifted through the air, a melody with no dancers. The people of the camp, the Vistani, watched them from beneath scarves and hoods, their eyes gleaming like polished glass. At the very center of the camp, an old woman sat before a crystal lantern. A spread of cards lay before her on a small table, each one looking like a fragment of destiny itself. "Sit," she said, her voice raspy but firm. "You are lost in his land, as all are lost, but perhaps the cards may find your road." Vanter crossed his powerful arms. "We don't put much stock in tricks." A slow smile spread across the old woman's face. "Tricks? No. These are truths that have not yet happened." Catalina, however, seemed to recognize her. She sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "You're Madame Eva, aren't you?" The old woman nodded, her voice dropping to a low, resonant hum. "Names matter little, but yes, I see your faces in the mists often." She turned over the first card. It depicted a knight of swords, wreathed in shadow. "The dwarf," she began, her eyes on Venter, "whose cunning will be tested when the mind itself turns against him." She revealed a second card, the rogue, smiling from beneath a raised blade. "The halfling," she said, glancing at Roken, "burns too bright. His fire will save him, or consume him." A third card followed, the beast, bound in chains. "The half-orc will hunt the hunter," she said, her gaze finding Taztic. "But beware the kinship of blood." The fourth card was the priestess, a figure bearing a light through ruins. "The cleric is the heart," she declared, looking at Catalina, "the light that must not falter." Finally, she drew one last fateful card, the vampire. Her voice sank to a chilling whisper. "Your fates are bound to his. None may leave this land until he is undone." As she spoke, lightning split the distant sky. The strange campfire sputtered, and when the heroes looked back at Madame Eva, her eyes had turned the color of silvered glass. "Seek the sun sword," she intoned. "Seek the tome of his own hand. Seek the symbol that bears the morning lord's grace. Only then may the dawn return." And just like that, the fire went out, plunging the camp into darkness. When they stumbled back to the village of Barovia, the world seemed frozen in time. The same moon hung in the sky. The same fog clung to the ground, as if the night had never progressed. Ismark was waiting for them at the tavern door, his face pale with terror. "He came again," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Strahd." He called for Irina by name. The door held, but his words were cut short by a piercing scream from inside the house. Catalina was already moving before he finished speaking. They burst into the Kolyanas' home to a scene of violation. The front door hung open, swinging in a wind that tore at the curtains. A layer of frost covered the floorboards. In the middle of the room, Irina knelt beside a shattered window, her eyes wide with shock. Her hand was pressed to her throat, and blood was already welling between her fingers. He was here," she gasped, her voice strained with pain and fear. "He said, soon." Vanter crouched beside her, his expression grim as he examined the wound. "He's toying with us." Roken slammed his fist against the wall, the wood splintering under the impact. "Next time he shows his face, You'll do nothing." Catalina cut in sharply, her voice ringing with authority. "He's not a man. He's a curse given flesh." Taztic looked past them all, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains where the black towers of Castle Ravenloft clawed at the churning clouds. "The hunt has truly begun."